This video is for the Salt Lake Community College Basic Drawing Architectural 1130 class, and today we're going to be doing an introduction to pen drawing and sketching. So again, we're using the Michelin techniques from the Drawing and Designing with Confidence book, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through and show you a few different ways of doing the graphic principles as taught in his book. We'll go through not everything, but a few of those and just kind of show you how they differ a little bit in pen. And then I will post a separate video with a demonstration on doing a pen drawing. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So basically you just need a piece of copy paper. Eventually you'll need a pencil to do your sketch. But not right now, so I'll put that aside. And then you need what I talked about in class about needing a thin and a thick pen. So I've got, for me, a Razor Pilot Point, Pilot Razor Point 2 pen here. And then also that'll kind of be my thin line thickness. And then this one is just a Papermate felt tip pen that I will use for my thicker pen weights when I need them. So. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first things you'll notice is that with pen drawing, there's no way to chisel the point, so you can't necessarily get thin and thick lines like we do with pencil just by twisting your hand. So that's why we need two different line thicknesses. But the first thing that we're going to look at is then would be fuzzy line. So fuzzy line is where you, again, get that really nice kind of a soft line. But when you draw with pen, let's see how well this picks up here. If you draw a slow line, notice how I get a very thick, well, not thick, it's not the right word, but a very dark, solid sort of a line there. And when you draw with pen and you do it slowly, that's the type of a line you're going to get. In order to get a fuzzy line with pen, you have to draw or pull your pen very, very quickly. I'll do a few here so you can see that. So when you start working with pen, you need to learn how to kind of pull your pen very, very quickly in order to get kind of that really thin, sort of a fuzzy line. So as I lift up my paper here, and you can kind of see that, and you can see that the line's thinner, and it also has, it's a lighter weight to it, kind of has a fuzziness to that. So let me demonstrate that to you using the felt tip also, and it comes through even more so, the way to see that. So. Again, very slowly drawn line with a felt tip, like that. And then if I pull my pen really quickly, right, then I get that fuzzy line. And you can actually see there that, you know, the pen's being drawn so quickly that you can actually see the paper in between or come through where the line is versus that very thick line. So with pen, one of the things you have to do is you have to be able to draw with confidence and quickly but accurately. So I would suggest that taking some time to practice doing just pulling your pen really quickly but being able to draw a straight line. Notice again, as this is another example of in class, I'm starting here, and as I come down on my line and I'm lifting up my pencil, notice how that, the pen, notice how I get a nice thin, almost trailing off of the line, so it comes almost to a sharp point as I do that, versus where at the beginning it's a heavier, kind of a thicker line where I put my pen down. So you do that by lifting up the pen each time that you pull your stroke. So that's the first thing, is you need to learn to draw quickly and yet very accurately with pen, and that takes some confidence to be able to do that, and you need to practice in order to be able to build confidence. All right, let's talk for just a second or demonstrate hit, go, hit, which is very similar as it is in pencil. Again, just a short little beginning, and then see how that really quick line in between is going to give you a fuzzy line. See, back and forth, and then really quick in between will give you kind of a half fuzzy line. So that's how you do hit, go, hit. Professional gap, professional dot are very similar to pencil. Just going to leave that gap or that dot at the end of the line. So I should get that all the way onto the camera here. Okay, so it's just doing something like that in order to leave some gaps and breaks in your line. Overlap corner is very similar to the pencil technique that we talked about. So you're just going to leave that overlap. And again, it's because you're drawing quickly. You don't need to take the time to get everything to line up exactly. And it's just kind of that nice sketchy feel that you can get with drawing in this architectural style. Okay, so overlap corner, very similar. Let's jump to repeat line. So repeat line again is similar. You're just going to kind of go repeat that line in order to sort of soften the edge as you would with pencil. So that's very similar. Let's talk about 3D line. So 3D line is basically where you take a thin line and then next to that you draw a thicker, heavier line, and that helps to create depth. Right, so that's very easily done with pen, with just that thin pen and then a thick pen. So you can do that in different parts of your drawing as we do that. Where it does help though, or come into play, is when you do a variable line. So let's talk about variable line in pen. So again, we're not going to get a variation of thickness just by twisting it like we do with pencil, but you do want to change how hard you're pushing and then your directionality in order to get a variable line. So I'm just going to do something like this, where again it's hard to move it quickly to get kind of that fuzzy line. But if I just kind of vary it, and then I'm just keeping a very light pressure so that when I lift it up, I get these gaps that you want. Okay, and then there's sometimes when you get some nice thin lines just by doing that, the way you kind of lift up that pen, and you almost just sort of automatically get some thinner and thicker areas just as you kind of are barely touching the pen to the paper, versus where you're kind of lifting it up and pulling it along. And if you slow down, you get more ink onto the paper, and it creates more of a thicker line as you do that. Okay. So that's kind of the variable line. Now if I want to create some darker areas and make it a little bit more of a 3D line, so then I can come back with my thicker pen, my felt tip pen in this point, and just kind of do some of that, right? And create this sort of thicker line just kind of next to it. And then again, that kind of creates some depth into our drawing. All right, like that, for just kind of creating little bushes and trees and things like that. So that would be variable line. The next thing I want to talk about is gradual value change. And so in pen, doing gradual value change, you really have to use your line spacing, and then you again have to have that very quick line movement in order to create your softness and some areas that are lighter than others. So I'm using my thin pen here, and I'm going to create some gradual value change in this little box. So you do that. Let me show you one other technique here. So notice that on the pen here, if we zoom in really close here, it's not going to capture that, but you basically have the metal part of the pen, and then you've got the little felt tip sort of nib that's at the end. And if I kind of draw an enlargement of that, right, you've got the pen that looks like that, and then right up here at the top you've got this little felt tip area that's right there. Okay, and then the pen kind of comes off from here. Okay, So notice that there's the metal part and then there's the nib there. So if I tilt my paper, so if this is the pen and I'm going to put it down on the paper, if I tilt this at an angle to where the paper is, at a very acute angle here, I'm going to start to get to the point where I'm actually resting more on the metal portion than I am on the black portion. And if I do that, if I tilt my pen way down low, then I can actually write along that metal portion and no ink will come onto my paper, right? But if I find that edge and then I barely tilt that up, I can get just a little tiny bit of the pen to come onto the paper. So let me kind of show that to you. So hold this down at a very sharp angle. See how I can draw my pencil along here? And it's getting nothing. Now you see there I actually tilted it right at the right angle. If I start to tilt this up, and you can feel this, you can feel that metal just sort of scraping against your paper. And then right there, see that angle right there? And what I can get is see how it's just kind of creating this jittery, almost sort of a fuzzy line coming across there. Okay, so let me zoom in, lift up my paper here, and you can see that. See how I get kind of that, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost a punctuate, it's just sort of a dotted line type of a thing going on, right? So if I want to get a soft line, I can find that edge as I'm sketching, right? And again, I'm just sort of tilting my pencil, tilting it up or down at this sort of an angle until I find that so I can write that. So I'm going to start out, I wanted to show you that because when I do this, I'm going to kind of start there and I'm going to find that edge right there where I can kind of ride that so that I don't start out too dark with my gradual value change. So that's what I'm doing here, right? So what I do is I start with some lines that are really close together, and as I want to create that gradual value change, I just increase the spacing, right? And if there's not enough lines there, you can come back here and kind of just do it again, right? So that's one direction. You go to 45 degree, I'm going to go dark to light, right? So I do that direction. Then I go vertically, and I'm going to do the same thing, right? And again, tighter spacing on my lines and further apart as they come over. And then I do the same thing horizontally, right? And I can do the same thing this way, but now I'm not going light to dark, so I just want to maybe keep my spacing the same. Okay, so that's basically what I'm going to do, and that it's just kind of a quick demonstration, but those are kind of the four directions that you want to take your pen when you're doing a gradual value change. So, so as I'm doing that, I would do something like this to kind of start building that up. I rarely use all four of those directions unless I want to get something really, really dark. Okay, and then I'm also using this technique where I'm lifting up my pen. So I'm going the direction of starting at dark and then light, so I lift up my pen, as I showed earlier, in order to kind of create that softness at the end and letting that value kind of change as I come across here. All right, so I'm playing both with the directionality as well as how quickly I'm drawing that angle, and I kind of use that to kind of create this gradual value change of dark to light across the surface. So it takes some practice, but you just use cross-hatching in order to create this gradual value change. The other thing that you can do is that can be helpful is you come in here and you can put some dots, which we've talked about previously. Dots are really good in pen because you get it just kind of a nice point. Kind of helps with that gradual value change, or helps to create some texture in your gradual value change. So those are the main sort of techniques that we use when we start to use pen in our drawings. And so practice these and start to feel comfortable with those, and then we will do a sketch.